From your Application button, click on Options. In the General tab, here we display the username. This is generally set to your login name, but your Revit or BIM manager may decide on another naming method. This is what controls who has access and who owns and who is borrowing which elements from the central file. On the File Locations tab, we have the default path for user files. This is important for creating your local or sandbox copy. When you open and save a file, this is the location that you'll be working on, not your server location, as you would generally in most project files. For this next part, you will have to have created your own central file. You cannot use the ones on the DVD. So the precursor to this exercise is the previous exercise where you would have copied a file into a central location and created a work sharing file. Now what I'm going to do is open that central file, but I'm not going to click on the shortcut here on the Recent Files screen. I'm actually going to click on Open and browse to that Revit project file. And there's a valid reason for doing this. If I highlight the file, notice how Revit is prompting me to create a new local file. When I click on Open, what Revit does is it copies the file from your central location on your server through to your local folder. It renames the file and puts your username at the end of that project file name, and then it opens it. So when using Revit, it's really important that you don't use Windows Explorer to open files. You should always do it through the Open dialog box. They say that working with Revit means a paradigm shift, and generally that refers to the actual workflow, but it also refers to the way that people who are working on the files are working. I know a lot of you out there are going to be using Windows Explorer to open files, and it's a difficult habit to get rid of. Revit needs discipline. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to click on Open. Revit's going to take the work sharing file here, copy it into my local folder, rename it, and then open it. So there's the local file. It's already been copied and renamed, and now Revit's opening that file. The other thing to notice is that now that that file is open, we have two save buttons. We have a save, which saves the current project into my local directory. Let's take a look at the date and time when I click on Save. Notice how they update, but the work sharing file hasn't updated, the one in the central location. This will only update when I click on the Synchronize and Modify settings. Now what I can do here is I can save my local file before and after synchronizing with Central. What this means is that when you synchronize your file with Central, not only does it push changes that you've made back to the central location, it also pulls down any changes that other users have made. So it saves your local file, does the synchronization back to this location, and then saves your local file again because there may have been additional changes made. So this time, when I click on OK, we should see the local file date and time update, the central file date and time update, and then the local file date and time update again. Keep a close eye on it. And because they were so close together, the date and time is the same. The one thing in here that I cannot stress enough is the fact that you use the Open Project dialog box when you're opening your work sharing project. And you do that every day. So rather than going and opening up this work sharing file in the morning, you go back to the Open dialog box. Now you might say, why can't I just go and open this file? And true, that might be okay in most instances. But if you're working on a project with a lot of other people and lots of changes have happened, maybe you've had the morning off, so that when you come and try and save your file, the changes back at Central are so great that Revit has trouble. So the best option is, every day, create a new local file. Now Revit's going to come up with another message. Let's see what happens when I go and create a new work sharing local file. Revit tells me that it can't create a local file. There's one already there. What do I want to do? Do I want to overwrite the existing file or append a timestamp to the existing file name? What happens here is the file and the backup folder both get renamed with the date and timestamp. As a kind of backup, it can always be deleted, but let's see what happens anyway. The file gets copied, the files get renamed, and eventually the project file gets opened. So you're still working on this file, the work sharing Simon W, but the old file has now been renamed.